Yang Xinhai was born on the 17th of July 1968 in Zhenjiang County, China. He lived with his family in a small village and was the youngest of 4 children. Unfortunately, their family's financial situation was not very good, and they were considered one of the poorest families in the village. Among all the family members, Yang was the smartest and showed good performance in school from a young age. He was very quiet, didn't talk much, and had no friends. But he got high grades. He had a talent for art and painting. He always had a notebook in his hand and was drawing. He dreamed of entering the filmmaking and directing industry in the future. Yang was the first in his family to continue his education after elementary school, going on to middle and high school. But despite his interest in academic education, he dropped out of school at the age of 17. He needed money and concluded that he could be a more useful person by working. After dropping out of school at 17, he started working with his brother in a coal mine and stayed there for about a year, until he decided to leave Zhenjiang County and go on a long journey. At the age of 18, Yang Xinhai left his hometown and began his long journey from province to province in China. He was traveling for several years, during which he earned his daily expenses through jobs like manual labor and contracting. In 1988, Yang Xinhai arrived in the city of Xi'an. Xi'an is one of the cities with a rich historical and cultural heritage, located in the northwestern part of China. Xi'an is over 3,000 years old and is considered one of the 4 ancient capitals of China. In short, Yang was residing in Xi'an in 1988, and it was in this very year that he was arrested for stealing a metal container. The shopkeeper from whom he had stolen took Yang to court and demanded a serious sentence for the man. After a court hearing, Yang Xinhai was sentenced to 3 years in a labor camp in the city of Xi'an for stealing a container. Yang worked in this camp from 1988 to 1991 and returned to society after his sentence was completed. He took up manual labor again to make a living. However, less than a year after his release, he started stealing again, was arrested, and was sent back to the labor camp. According to the limited information we have from the case file, we don't know exactly how many years he was imprisoned this time. That is, we don't know much about Yang Xinhai's life situation between 1991 and 1996. But he was imprisoned in the labor camp for about a few months to a year, and then resumed his previous life pattern. He continued his journey in China until he reached the city of Zhumadian in Henan province in 1996. In 1996, Yang Xinhai was arrested in Zhumadian for attempted rape. The victim of this crime, as Yang was trying to rape her, bit the man's tongue, used the opportunity to flee, and then called the police. Yang was sentenced to 5 years in prison for attempted rape. According to available information, Yang did not serve his full 5-year sentence in prison and was released early for good behavior. It is necessary to know that during a period in between, Yang Xinhai had a girlfriend whom he was deeply in love with. We don't know exactly if this is related to his arrest in 1991 or 1996. But his girlfriend promised to wait for him at the time of Yang's arrest. They agreed not to break up and to continue their relationship and even get married when Yang was released from prison. The day Yang was released from prison, the first thing he did after his release was to look for his girlfriend. After a lot of inquiries with their mutual acquaintances, he was able to find his girlfriend and learned that that very day was his girlfriend's wedding ceremony. Of course, I also read another version of this story that was written on a few websites. Some news agencies had said that Yang Xinhai and his girlfriend got into a relationship after Yang's release from prison, and Yang had fallen in love with the girl. But when his girlfriend found out about his past and the attempted rape case, she broke off the relationship with Yang and distanced herself from him. In short, whatever the case was, the girl left Yang, and this criminal had his heart broken. And it's interesting that most people who read Yang Xinhai's case blame this girl for the murders that Yang would commit in the future, which is truly strange and incomprehensible. The person left him because she didn't want to be in a relationship with a thief and a sexual abuser. Then people say it was this poor woman's fault, just because Yang had his heart broken and decided to start killing. Yang Xinhai's crimes entered a higher level from the year 1999, escalating from theft and attempted rape to murder. Between the years 1999 and 2003, this man murdered 67 people. And with these figures, he became one of China's most notorious serial killers, with the highest number of victims. Yang's murders had a specific pattern that was repeated in almost all cases. In the dark of night, he would sneak into strangers' houses. He would search the house to find a murder weapon, and after finding a suitable tool like a sickle, axe, large knife, shovel, hammer, and many other things, he would kill the residents of that house. In most cases, he would rape the women who lived in the house, and his rape victims were usually young girls or elderly women. He later confessed that children and old people were easier to control and had less risk. For each murder, he wore different clothes and shoes, and the size of his clothes and shoes during the crime was larger than his own size. He always used gloves and was fully mindful not to leave behind fingerprints or any important evidence. He committed the murders and rapes in the dark of night, and then left the victims' homes before the sky was light. He would bury the murder weapon somewhere near the crime scene and destroy all his clothes, gloves, shoes, and any item he had with him during the murder. Sometimes he would bury the clothes, throw them into running water, burn them, or simply toss them into large city garbage bins. Yang Xinhai was not a foolish person and knew well how to commit murder, leave no evidence of himself, and not get caught. Over 3 years, Yang Xinhai murdered 67 people. But it took a considerable amount of time for the police to realize that all these murders were committed by one person. They would usually wrap up each case, arrest people who were innocent, and stamp solved on cases that were clearly unsolved. For example, in a few cases, they convicted an alcoholic man and closed the investigations. According to the limited information we have, Yang committed his first murder on the 19th of September 2000. He entered a family's home in the village of Guozhuang and murdered 2 people. And by the first day of October 2000, he went north and killed 3 people in the village of Shaoying and also raped 1 person. These 3 people were a grandmother along with her 2 young grandchildren, all 3 of whom were killed with a knife and a hammer. Yang inflicted more than 30 stab wounds on the grandmother's body and 17 wounds on the children's bodies, and then smashed their skulls with a hammer. Yang Xinhai's murders were not quiet and silent, meaning it wasn't like he would sneak into someone's house and slit their throat with a knife. No, this killer literally turned the victims' homes into horror houses. Traces of blood were seen on every single wall. Sometimes he would smash the victim's skull so much that identifying them was impossible. Yang's murders began on the 19th of September 2000 and lasted until the 8th of August 2003. The interval between the murders was very short, and usually, Yang would commit murder every 2 or 3 days. When the interval between murders became longer, Yang was traveling. Another reason the police couldn't connect the cases was related to the wide geographical location of these 67 murders. The murders were committed in different cities and even different provinces. For example, there was more than a 6-hour journey between each city, and this very issue made the local police in each region not think that these murders might be serial. During his time as a serial killer, Yang Xinhai continued to travel as he had in the past few years, earning his travel expenses through manual labor. That is, he was leading exactly the same previous life, with the difference that he was a laborer by day and a murderer by night. During this short period of a few years, Yang attacked 26 homes, raped 23 people, and also left 10 victims alive. Many of the reports we have from these murders have been narrated by these 10 victims. When I read the case, a question arose for me. Did Yang intentionally leave these victims alive, or were these 10 people simply lucky? We don't know the exact answer to this question, but I personally think that given the severe injuries all the victims had sustained, Yang Xinhai thought these 10 people were dead, and their survival was completely by chance. And not all of these 10 people survived. A few of them died after reaching the hospital, and one of them lost his life 2 weeks after being rescued. The victim who died after 2 weeks gave very useful information to the police and the media, and was one of the people who greatly helped in making this case public. The Chinese government, unlike the US and European countries, does not easily make information related to criminal cases available to the public. The limited news that is broadcast about their cases comes out with 100 filters, and a very small part of it reaches Western media. It was the same with this case. If the media had not succeeded in interviewing that one survivor who died after 2 weeks, we would not have much of the information related to the case now. I think it's very horrifying. People didn't even know an active serial killer was roaming their cities. And frankly, it seems the police didn't even know either. Let's also know that after Yang's arrest, the Chinese government erased a large portion of the information related to each murder case from all media and internet archives, because in many cases they had arrested and convicted innocent people. They didn't want this matter to reach the ears of Western media or even their own people. In his final murders, Yang Xinhai acted so carelessly that he gave himself away. He behaved so conspicuously that those around him became suspicious. On the 3rd day of November 2003, Yang was having a good time in a street bar, and a few months had passed since the last murder he had committed. Meanwhile, the city police were patrolling that area like any other day and arrived at the bar where Yang was having a good time. According to the information I gathered, patrol police in China ask for identification cards from many customers of these bars to check their information. This is completely normal, and the people whose identification documents the police check are chosen randomly. That day, the police saw Yang Xinhai in the bar and asked for his identification card. We don't know why they chose Yang, but it might not have been accidental. Why? A significant number of these 67 murders occurred in Henan Province, China, and I think that after all these cases, the Henan police had certainly suspected that a serial killer was prowling the area. They probably had a general description of the killer, which is why the theory that is raised is that the reason the police asked Yang for his identification card was that he looked like the killer. In short, we don't know exactly why Yang was chosen. But when the police asked him for his identification card, he had no documents with him, and his behavior seemed a bit suspicious, as if he was scared. The police arrested Yang right there and brought him to the police station for questioning. Note that up to this point, the police had no idea who they had arrested. At best, they had only guessed that Yang looked like their potential killer. But as soon as this man arrived at the police station and the interrogation began, he started, of his own free will, to confess to every single crime he had committed. He started from the first murder and continued until he reached the 67th victim. Strangely, he remembered all the victims along with their murder dates and told the police every small detail that came to his mind. According to the reports from these interrogations, Yang was calm and spoke slowly and deliberately while confessing. But he was also angry. He was neither sorry nor ashamed of what he had done, but he was furious. His confessions took several months. For every murder he described to the police, they would go and check the related evidence and then match it with Yang's DNA. None of Yang Xinhai's confessions were lies. After all the murders were linked to Yang with acceptable evidence, a trial was held for this serial killer on the 1st day of February 2004. Yang Xinhai was found guilty in all the cases he was accused of, and the judge issued a death sentence for this man. 2 weeks after his sentence was issued, on the 14th of February 2004, Yang Xinhai was executed by firing squad in China. This serial killer never spoke about his motive for the crime, and overall, there is only one quote from him. "When I killed people, I had a desire that motivated me to kill more. I didn't care if the victims deserved to live or not. That was not my concern. I have no desire to be a part of society. Society is not my concern.